My name is Duncan Ochengundu. I'm the Executive Officer at the Seed Trade Association of Kenya, STAC. STAC is a membership organization of seed companies, organizations and institutions that are dealing in the trade of formal seed. Formal seed in Kenya, we basically have two broad seed regimes. The first one is formal seed, and then the second one is informal seed. Formal and informal. The formal seed is one which has gone through inspection, it has gone through certification process, it has been verified by field inspectors, and then it has gone through the process of variety release, and then finally through seed companies and through agro dealers, the farmers can be able to get this particular seed. So that's basically how STAC, in partnership with KEFIS, is ensuring that we have seed quality. Substandard seeds can come from what we call unscrupulous traders. This is what they do, and it's very interesting. Unscrupulous traders will take grain, and then if seed for maybe maize for a given company is coated in green, they'll take the grain and then they'll color it green. So when the farmer buys, of course the farmer may not even know whether this is grain or not. The farmer will be looking at the seed or perhaps the grain. The farmer will be looking at the coating. They say this is green, so green is for this particular company, and then they will plant. Once they have done that, of course, because they have also not done the scratching of the label, they'll find that they're actually planting grain. Of course, if you plant grain, you are unlikely to harvest anything. According to the Seeds and Plant Varieties Act, KEFIS, Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, is the one which has the policing powers. In fact, in cases where KEFIS has done raids, they do it, in partnership with the law enforcement. STAC does not have a power, but we have a voice. So when we see that the unscrupulous traders, we'll ask with KEFIS and of course the law enforcement to ensure that this particular practice is nipped in the bud. We don't have the power as per law, but we have the voice, and that is what we've been doing. And that is why we have been also lobbying to ensure that we have stiffer penalties, especially for those who are found dealing in counterfeit seed. Right now, somebody can be involved in counterfeit seed, then they are given a paltry charge in terms of fine of about 100,000. And you can imagine that this particular seed which is counterfeit could even be as much as millions of shillings. So you can find this particular person is even scoffing, at the penalty at which they have been given. We have been looking at a case where this particular fine should be so punitive that one will not be able to get it with. Alternatively, we are looking at, of course, lobbying the government to make sure that anybody involved in counterfeit seed could be seen as, quote, terrorist who is a threat to food security, who is involved in what we are calling crimes against humanity. So that is where we are headed to in terms of STAC pushing. And if this happens, then we are very sure that the counterfeit seed in the market will generally go down. Although, gladly, we have about just isolated pockets in Kenya where we have counterfeit seed. It's not like before where it was rampant, but because of the use of the sticker label, the number has gone drastically down. A recent study shows that we have a confidence level of about 81%. So you can imagine the counterfeit seed has really gone down because of, again, of the use of the sticker label.
We have still a number of challenges, and I'll just focus on about 3 that are important. One that was ably mentioned is the issue of the 16% VAT on vegetable seeds. This is a major disincentive to the growth of the sector, which is estimated to have a turnover of about 50 billion. This is data based on the vegetable seed caucus. We noticed that this sector, actually that particular subsector, can employ easily 3.5 million farmers directly and people within the value chain. So the impact of the VAT tax effect overall has increased the cost of production between 20 to 35%, and therefore making Kenya uncompetitive within the EAC. And I gave an example yesterday of onions. So it's easier to access cheaper onions from Loitoktok coming into the borders because it's easier and cheaper to produce. There's also the issue of cess. Cess has continued to be a challenge where seed companies have to pay cess across counties as they move seed, and this is increasing the cost of doing business, and also this cost is sometimes passed to the farmers. So Ministry of Agriculture, Trade, and the Council of Governors need to work together. Currently, I know that ASNET through KEPSA is working very closely to put a position paper that will be presented through the ministry to consider harmonization so that when cess is charged in one county, you can move seed across. And then lastly, the policy and legislation which support, with support from the government and the regulator, we seek a requirement that all registered seed companies should be members of Seed Trade Association of Kenya as a critical element of self-regulation. And I just want to make some comments here. We've seen this as a trend. It's taken, if you look at different sectors, Kenya Veterinary Association, which is a regulatory body. If you look at the medical field, if you look at the legal field, it's really mandatory. And even PCPB, I think we noticed that players within the agrochem industry have to belong to an association. So we want to push to get these legislated so that we avoid unscrupulous players within the industry and supporting the core regulation of how seed trade is done.
We've listened as a government to the challenges the sector is facing. Some of it is being addressed. For example, we already have the anti-counterfeit agency that is helping in tracking and ensuring that there are no counterfeit seeds that are sold in the country. This agency has been working very closely with other regulatory agencies like Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Services to ensure that only certified quality seeds are sold to our farmers. The effects of counterfeit seeds economically is high because the farmer loses a whole cycle of production, a whole year of production, because they will not have another chance to plant at the right time. I know we are now facing challenges where some of our farmers end up sourcing products from the neighboring countries. Some of these products, we are not sure whether it meets our standards because we have the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Services who are supposed to certify all the seeds that are sold in the country. Any other seed that is sold in the country without the authority of Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Services, those ones are illegal. And I think we want to say KEPHIS has been doing a commendable job. They have really ensured that no seeds that are planted in the country that are not approved by them. That's what we are doing as a government. The other challenge is, of course, the high cost, some of them arising from taxation. And we have engaged and discussed with the Seed Association of Trade Association of Kenya on how and then this can be addressed. More so, the engagement with the Ministry of Agriculture is important so that we understand the effects of VAT on the vegetable seeds. We really have agreed today from this meeting that we are going to have a meeting which then will give recommendations on the way forward. If need be, then the Ministry of Agriculture may advise the National Treasury to consider removal of VAT on the vegetable seeds specifically, because that has proved to be highly costly to our farmers. The other issue is the issue of lack of land, available land for production of seed products, because they are struggling. You know, the seed production requires space, requires to be planted far away from other crops or crops that are not for seed production, and therefore using the government policy of availing the public land that is owned by some of our institutions to give to the private sector seed producing companies to use those lands has been recommended to them, and already we have a a policy in the Ministry of Agriculture because the Cabinet gave approval for use of public land for commercial production, both for large-scale commercial and also for seed production. So I want to call upon the private sector to come and take advantage of this policy of the government to increase production or to increase productivity in their farming. We have written to all the government agencies to submit returns from their institutions, the acreages that they hold that is not being utilized, to surrender it so that it can be put in a data bank. We are working very closely with the National Land Commission, where we are now going to create a data bank for the same. I can confirm to you that the acreages that you're talking about runs in thousands, because I know some of the institutions already have huge tracts of land that are not being used. We've not known the exact figure, but we have requested for returns from them so that we compile and have a one report. But in terms of procedures on how to go about it, it's been agreed, and I think it is just waiting ratification by our Cabinet Secretary in terms of the processes. This has been done through a multi-sectoral approach in the sense that we have different agencies of the government, Office of the Attorney General, the Ministry, the Ministry and also the National Land Commission and Ministry of Lands that have come together to come up with that framework because the Cabinet gave the approval.